Have you ever found yourself completely lost, mesmerized by the deep, knowing pools of emerald or liquid gold that are your cat's eyes? In that silent, shared gaze, have you felt a profound and ancient wisdom looking back, a consciousness that seems to see beyond your physical form and into the very core of your being? Have you ever, in a moment when the world felt like an overwhelming tempest of chaos and your own heart was a battlefield of anxiety, had your cat approach with an almost prescient understanding, settle upon your lap as if claiming its rightful throne, and begin to vibrate with that gentle, rhythmic purr? And in that moment, have you felt the knots of tension within your soul begin to miraculously untangle, soothed by a peace that defies all logical explanation? If you have felt this unspeakable calm, this silent, deep, and unwavering understanding, then you must awaken to the truth of what you are experiencing. This is not merely the simple, comforting affection of a household pet. You are, in fact, tuning into a divine secret, a sacred prophecy that was whispered into the fabric of our reality decades ago, a cosmic truth so profound that only now, in this pivotal moment of human history, is it beginning to blossom fully in the collective consciousness. This message, this grand revelation, is for you. It is a key, offered with love, to unlock a door within your own perception that you may not have even realized was there. If the words that follow cause a deep stirring in your spirit, a powerful vibration of recognition in your heart, let your "I resonate" become a testament in the comments below. Affirm this sacred truth by typing 777 and share this awakening with every soul you know who is ready to hear it. For you are an essential part of a global network of light, and others are waiting for this very signal to remember who they truly are. Let us journey back through the corridors of time, to a world gripped by the fierce talons of conflict and steeped in a fog of global uncertainty. The year is 1943. While nations clashed in a devastating war and the very future of humanity seemed to hang by a fragile thread, a man named Edgar Cayce, the now legendary sleeping prophet, lay in a state of deep, profound trance. His physical body was a still and quiet vessel, resting on a worn leather couch in his simple study in Virginia Beach, but his consciousness was unbound, a luminous vessel sailing upon the cosmic currents of creation, traversing the unseen corridors of dimensions that lie far beyond the reach of our ordinary, waking perception. Seated faithfully beside him was his devoted secretary, Gladys Davis, a silent guardian tasked with the sacred duty of transcribing these cosmic communiques. Her fingers, though practiced, were poised and trembling slightly over the keys of her stenograph. She had been a privileged witness to this miracle countless times before, yet the profound, charged stillness that filled the room in these moments never failed to instill in her a sense of reverent awe. She knew, with a certainty that defied her own logical mind, that the words about to flow through the sleeping form of Edgar Cayce often shattered the very bedrock of conventional human understanding. The air in the study grew thick, palpably dense, with a silent, expectant energy, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, a voice, not entirely Cayce's own, but something distant, incredibly clear, and imbued with an ethereal, otherworldly authority, emerged from the depths of his trance. It spoke of humanity's destiny, of immense trials and tribulations that lay on the horizon, and then, with a startling crystalline clarity, it uttered a single, profound, and at the time, utterly perplexing phrase, "The cat." Gladys's fingers momentarily froze above the keys, the simple two-syllable word hanging in the air, seemingly innocuous yet charged with an immense, hidden meaning that would take nearly a century to fully decipher. What followed in that extraordinary, world-changing session would not be a typical health reading detailing herbal remedies and dietary cures for physical ailments, nor was it a grand geological prophecy of shifting continents and rising seas, as many of Cayce's other readings were. This was something entirely different, something far more intimate and spiritually significant. It was a revelation that would delve into the very essence of the sacred, symbiotic contract that exists between the human race and our enigmatic, often misunderstood, feline companions. This transcript, containing a truth so extraordinary, so paradigm-shattering, would be carefully documented, its pages filled with the cryptic yet powerful pronouncements from a higher consciousness. And then, like a precious seed planted deep within the dark, fertile earth, it would lie dormant. For over 8 long decades, this profound knowledge remained buried within the sprawling archives of the Association for Research and Enlightenment, a forgotten time capsule of immense wisdom, patiently waiting for a future generation, our generation, to arrive. It waited for a world that would finally possess the scientific tools and the spiritual openness necessary to comprehend and fully accept the impossible. In that hallowed, time-bending trance, Cayce's voice, acting as a clear conduit for a knowledge that flows from a source far beyond the veil of our limited reality, illuminated the true, divine purpose of these magnificent creatures we so casually and dismissively call pets. You must understand the essence of the message conveyed, that cats are not mere animals. They are not simply our companions, sharing the warmth of our homes for mutual convenience and the comfort of a soft place to sleep. They are, in absolute truth, divinely appointed sentinels of a higher order. They are cosmic ambassadors, living, breathing vessels of pure light, carrying within the very structure of their DNA the sacred encoded blueprints for humanity's spiritual survival and ultimate salvation. He spoke with unerring foresight of a coming age, an era that is now undeniably upon us, a time when a deep and pervasive spiritual amnesia would descend upon the consciousness of humankind. This forgetting would cause a widespread and painful disconnection from our own divine nature, from the living spirit of the earth, and most tragically, from each other. In this great and challenging period of global forgetting, he prophesied with absolute certainty these feline creatures would serve as humanity's silent, steadfast, and unwavering guardians. They would stand as vigilant sentinels, holding their sacred post at the delicate and shimmering threshold that separates the dense, physical world from the unseen, higher-frequency spiritual realms. This prophecy, a single, almost forgotten transcript hidden amongst thousands of others, remained a cryptic mystery for the better part of a century. It was largely dismissed by the few who chanced upon it as the metaphorical, even fantastical ramblings of a man lost in a world of his own mystical making. The world at large, increasingly consumed by the relentless pursuit of technological progress and the accumulation of material wealth, was not yet ready to listen to such a profound and soul-altering truth. The divine mission of the cat remained a silent whisper, a sacred secret, waiting patiently for the deafening clamor of the modern world to quiet just enough for its gentle frequency to be heard. And then, just as Cayce had foretold, the time of the Great Awakening began. In the early years of the 21st century, science, in its noble and relentless quest for logic and reason, began to unintentionally and inexplicably stumble upon the very same truths that Cayce had so eloquently articulated from his trance state all those years ago. Enter Dr. Sarah Chen, a brilliant, highly respected quantum physicist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Sarah's entire life, her identity, and her esteemed career were built upon the unshakable bedrock of measurable facts, empirical evidence, and the elegant certainty of mathematical proof. Her world was a meticulously ordered realm of humming particle accelerators, labyrinthine quantum equations, and the rigorous, unforgiving discipline of the scientific method. She was, by her own proud admission, a skeptic of the highest order. She adored her sleek, intelligent black tabby cat, whom she had ironically and affectionately named Schrödinger, but she viewed him strictly through the detached lens of biology and conditioned instincta, beautiful and fascinating marvel of evolution, to be sure, but nothing more. In her well-ordered logical universe, there was simply no room for mystical prophecies or unsubstantiated spiritual proclamations. But one day, without warning, her universe, and everything she held to be true, began to spectacularly unravel. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly, within the hallowed halls of her work. For weeks, Sarah had been wrestling with a particularly thorny set of quantum equations, a complex theoretical problem that seemed to defy all conventional approaches and had become an intellectual dead end for her and her team. Exhausted, mentally blocked, and deeply frustrated, she fell asleep at her desk one night, her head resting near a scattered pile of research papers upon which Schrödinger had, as he so often did, curled himself into a purring, vibrating ball of contented warmth. When she awoke in the quiet, pre-dawn stillness of her apartment, the solution was simply there. It bloomed in her conscious mind, not as a hard-won, step-by-step conclusion, but as a complete, fully formed, and breathtakingly elegant insight. It was a perfect, harmonious structure of logic that felt less like something she had arduously figured out, and more like something that had been graciously and lovingly given to her. It was, she would later confide in her trusted colleague, her voice laced with a mixture of awe and disbelief, as if mathematics itself was revealing its most closely guarded, beautiful secrets through the unlikely and impossible medium of her sleeping cat. "It's impossible," she whispered to her colleague, Dr. Marcus Rivera, her voice barely audible over the clatter of their weekly coffee meeting at a small cafe near the campus. "Cats do not and cannot process abstract mathematical concepts. Their brains simply do not possess the necessary neural architecture for that kind of higher-order reasoning. It's a biological impossibility." Marcus, a fellow physicist who had always harbored a deeper curiosity for the philosophical and mystical intersections of their field, leaned forward across the small wooden table, his eyes alight with an intense, almost feverish curiosity. "But what if, Sarah?" he posed, the question hanging in the air between them like a charged, vibrating particle. "What if we have been looking at this entire phenomenon completely backwards? What if the cats aren't processing our reality? What if they are, in fact, helping us to process theirs? What if they are acting as biological translators, transmuting information for us from higher dimensional frequencies that our own conscious, logical minds can't directly perceive or access?" Enter Dr. Sarah Chen, a brilliant, highly respected quantum physicist at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Sarah's entire life, her identity, and her esteemed career were built upon the unshakable bedrock of measurable facts, empirical evidence, and the elegant certainty of mathematical proof. Her world was a meticulously ordered realm of humming particle accelerators, labyrinthine quantum equations, and the rigorous, unforgiving discipline of the scientific method. She was, by her own proud admission, a skeptic of the highest order. She adored her sleek, intelligent black tabby cat, whom she had ironically and affectionately named Schrödinger, but she viewed him strictly through the detached lens of biology and conditioned instinctor, beautiful and fascinating marvel of evolution, to be sure, but nothing more. In her well-ordered logical universe, there was simply no room for mystical prophecies or unsubstantiated spiritual proclamations. But one day, without warning, her universe, and everything she held to be true, began to spectacularly unravel. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly, within the hallowed halls of her work. For weeks, Sarah had been wrestling with a particularly thorny set of quantum equations, a complex theoretical problem that seemed to defy all conventional approaches and had become an intellectual dead end for her and her team. Exhausted, mentally blocked, and deeply frustrated, she fell asleep at her desk one night, her head resting near a scattered pile of research papers upon which Schrödinger had, as he so often did, curled himself into a purring, vibrating ball of contented warmth. When she awoke in the quiet, pre-dawn stillness of her apartment, the solution was simply There. It bloomed in her conscious mind, not as a hard-won, step-by-step conclusion, but as a complete, fully formed, and breathtakingly elegant insight. It was a perfect, harmonious structure of logic that felt less like something she had arduously figured out, and more like something that had been graciously and lovingly given to her. It was, she would later confide in her trusted colleague, her voice laced with a mixture of awe and disbelief, as if mathematics itself was revealing its most closely guarded, beautiful secrets through the unlikely and impossible medium of her sleeping cat. "It's impossible," she whispered to her colleague, Dr. Marcus Rivera, her voice barely audible over the clatter of their weekly coffee meeting at a small cafe near the campus. "Cats do not and cannot process abstract mathematical concepts. Their brains simply do not possess the necessary neural architecture for that kind of higher-order reasoning. It's a biological impossibility." Marcus, a fellow physicist who had always harbored a deeper curiosity for the philosophical and mystical intersections of their field, leaned forward across the small wooden table, his eyes alight with an intense, almost feverish curiosity. "But what if, Sarah?" he posed, the question hanging in the air between them like a charged, vibrating particle. "What if we have been looking at this entire phenomenon completely backwards? What if the cats aren't processing our reality? What if they are, in fact, helping us to process theirs? What if they are acting as biological translators, transmuting information for us from higher dimensional frequencies that our own conscious, logical minds can't directly perceive or access?" That single revolutionary question became the catalyst for a paradigm-shifting investigation that would change the course of science forever. Driven by a desperate need to reconcile the impossible events she was experiencing with her rigorous scientific training, Sarah made a radical and unconventional decision. She invested a significant portion of her research grant into acquiring and installing a series of highly sophisticated, custom-built electromagnetic field, EMF, detectors throughout her apartment. These were not ordinary, off-the-shelf devices. They were sensitive enough to measure the most subtle, almost infinitesimal energy fluctuations in her environment, the kind of subtle energies that conventional scientific instruments and human senses almost always missed. The readings she began to obtain were not just surprising, they were staggering, irrefutably defying every known principle of biophysics and the laws of the known universe. The data was clear and consistent. Whenever Schrödinger, her seemingly ordinary cat, entered a room, the ambient electromagnetic signature of the entire space would not just change, it would self-organize. It would shift dramatically, coalescing into intricate, coherent, and impossibly complex geometric patterns. These patterns resembled the elegant, living architecture of advanced neural networks, or the sacred geometry found in the heart of galaxies and the structure of DNA, bearing no resemblance to the random, chaotic electromagnetic noise typically associated with living organisms. These were not the simple bioelectric fields generated by standard animal physiology. These were structured, purposeful, and information-rich communications. She then focused her instruments on his purr, that sound she had always dismissed as a simple, mechanical sign of contentment. What she found was that it was not random in the slightest. It operated with unwavering, laser-like precision at a frequency of 26 Hz. After cross-referencing this with medical databases, a shiver ran down her spine. 26 Hz was the exact, scientifically verified frequency known in advanced therapeutic medicine to promote bone healing, reduce inflammation, soothe nerve pain, and accelerate cellular regeneration in human beings. Here, in her own home, was a living, breathing, biological technology, a natural healing modality, far more sophisticated and perfectly designed than anything humanity had yet managed to create in its most advanced laboratories. This was not just a pet, this was a physician. This was a healer. The implications were breathtaking, almost too vast to comprehend. "Doctor," Chen realized with a jolt that the cats were not just passively existing within our emotional and energetic fields. They were actively and consciously modulating them. They were literally rewiring human neural pathways through a form of highly advanced organic sound therapy, using their own vocal cords as precision instruments for consciousness modification. They were filtering the dense, low-frequency energies of stress, anxiety, and emotional trauma that permeated the modern human environment, acting as biological air purifiers, not for the air we breathe, but for the very soul. They were, she understood, recalibrating human consciousness on a fundamental level, gently but persistently keeping people grounded in the higher frequency of love rather than the lower frequency of fear, of hope rather than despair, and of profound connection rather than agonizing isolation. This earth-shattering realization sent shockwaves through a select, interconnected global group of open-minded researchers. The puzzle pieces began to fit together with astonishing speed. In the neon-drenched metropolis of Tokyo, a perpetually stressed corporate executive named Hiroshi Tanaka had noticed a strange and inexplicable pattern. His small, sleek, black rescue cat, Kuro, whom he had found starving and injured in a rain-soaked alley behind his sterile office building, would strategically and deliberately position himself with an almost mathematical precision directly between Hiroshi and his computer screen, whenever he received particularly stressful or aggressive emails from difficult clients or demanding supervisors. Hiroshi's blood pressure, which had been dangerously and chronically elevated for years, a condition that medication had failed to control, had miraculously normalized completely within just a few short weeks of the cat's arrival. This was a dramatic, life-altering improvement that no medical intervention or lifestyle change could possibly explain. The cat's mere presence seemed to neutralize his anxiety, leaving him eerily calm, centered, and focused, as if the toxic, negative emotions were being actively filtered and transmuted from the very air around him. Half a world away, in the bustling city of Sao Paulo, a gentlewoman named Maria Santos watched in quiet awe as her elderly, 16-year-old tortoiseshell cat, Luna, who had been her cherished companion since her own childhood, maintained a constant, unwavering vigil by her dying grandmother's bedside. The old woman had been suffering greatly, but whenever Luna arrived, leaping silently onto the bed and beginning her deep, resonant purr, a look of profound, otherworldly peace would wash over her face, her pained breathing easing into a gentle rhythm. The cat seemed to possess an impossible intuition, arriving at the exact moment the grandmother's pain intensified, providing a silent, powerful comfort that transcended mere physical presence. When the grandmother finally and peacefully passed from this world, it was during one of Luna's bedside vigils. Her death was so serene, so gentle, that the family described it not as a loss, but as if she had simply and gracefully stepped from one room into another, guided by a loving, furry companion who intimately understood the sacred geography of the dimensions that lie beyond physical existence. Reports, once isolated and anecdotal, now began flooding in from veterinarians, animal behaviorists, therapists, and pet owners worldwide. They were individual cases that, on the surface, seemed unrelated, but all shared the same incredible, underlying patterns of impossible healing, intuitive connection, and prescient understanding. Children with severe autism who had been non-verbal their entire lives began to communicate, their first whispered words often being the name of the therapy cat whose constant, purring presence seemed to unlock long-dormant neural pathways that conventional treatments could never reach. Veterans, deeply scarred and haunted by the horrors of war, suffering from debilitating post-traumatic stress disorder, found a profound, grounding relief through interactions with cats that seemed to understand the complex nature of their psychological wounds with an intuitive, empathetic precision that surpassed even the most highly trained and experienced human therapists. The Global Research Collective, a clandestine network of brilliant minds now united by this incredible discovery, began feeding millions of disparate data points adoption records from shelters across every continent. Detailed behavioral observations, historical accounts, and Dr. Chen's groundbreaking electromagnetic readings into the world's most powerful quantum computers and advanced neural networks. They were searching for a pattern, a signal in the noise. What they found was a pattern so clear, so statistically significant, that it didn't just challenge probability, it completely and utterly mocked the very concept of coincidence. The artificial intelligence systems, running trillions of calculations per second, came to a staggering, irrefutable conclusion. The odds of these specific, deeply symbiotic, and mutually beneficial human-cat pairings occurring naturally through random chance were calculated to be approximately 1 in 847 trillion, a number so astronomically improbable that it vastly exceeds the total number of known atoms in the entire observable universe. These weren't accidents of fate, they were appointments. They were divine assignments, meticulously scheduled and executed by a cosmic intelligence operating on scales of time and space that dwarfed human comprehension, orchestrating these sacred meetings with the calculated accuracy and benevolent foresight of a master strategist. Everything Dr. Chen had ever held as an unshakable truth about the fundamental nature of the universe, the clear-cut definition of consciousness, the rigid, impermeable boundaries between species, and the perceived limitations of animal cognition, was about to shatter into a million iridescent fragments, like a pane of glass struck by a bolt of divine lightning. Cats, she and her team finally, conclusively discovered, exist in a perpetual, natural state of quantum superposition. Their very consciousness is simultaneously and effortlessly attuned to multiple dimensional frequencies, a state of being that allows them to perceive and interact with aspects of reality that remain completely invisible and inaccessible to ordinary human awareness. They are, without a doubt, interdimensional ambassadors, living, organic, biological technologies that have been perfectly designed to maintain energetic stability in human consciousness, especially during the great periods of evolutionary transition and upheaval, like the one we are experiencing right now. And you, dear soul, you who are hearing this message now, are exactly where you are meant to be. You are a chosen and essential participant in a cosmic plan so beautiful, so elegant, and so intricate that it transforms the ordinary, everyday act of pet ownership into a sacred, co-creative partnership in the divine orchestration of universal healing. The dusty, old Edgar Cayce trance notes, once dismissed as the strange and mystical ramblings of a psychic, now read with the stunning clarity of a precise instruction manual, a blueprint for an elaborate and benevolent cosmic operation that has been quietly and patiently unfolding for millennia. We, in our human-centric view, have always believed that we were the ones performing the act of rescue. We thought we were saving cats from the harsh realities of shelters, the dangers of the streets, and the loneliness of abandonment, performing simple acts of kindness that reflected well on our own compassion and moral development. But the truth, the profound, beautiful, and humbling truth, was infinitely more mysterious and magnificent than anyone had ever dared to imagine. All along, without our conscious knowledge, the cats have been rescuing us from ourselves. They have been silently, patiently, and lovingly orchestrating humanity's emotional and spiritual survival through the simple yet revolutionary power of their presence. They offer a deep, resonant healing that cannot be replicated by any technology or medicine created by man, because it operates on sacred frequencies of unconditional love that transcend all forms of physical intervention. This revelation is both humbling and profound, akin to discovering that angels have been living in plain sight among us all along, perfectly disguised as ordinary house pets who ask for nothing more in return than food a safe shelter, and our occasional gentle affection for the monumental, soul-saving services they provide. So, tonight, and every night hereafter, when you look at your cat, I implore you to truly see them for who and what they truly are. That slow, deliberate blink is not just a sign of feline trust. It is a conscious, powerful transmission of cosmic love, a direct blessing to your soul. That gentle head bump against your leg is not just a simple request for attention. It is a deliberate and precise recalibration of your personal energy field. Every deep, resonant purr that soothes your anxiety, every soft, gentle touch that reminds you that you are never truly alone in this vast and mysterious universe, is an active expression of an ancient, sacred covenant between our species, a powerful bond of love that transcends the illusory boundaries of individual existence. The prophecy, foretold so long ago, is now unfolding in real time. The guardians are in place, strategically positioned in homes all around the world. The cats, these divine emissaries of light, have been patiently waiting for you to understand. And now that you do, everything changes.